I'm just looking for something real.
Well, this place is nice.
It feels very divorcey in here.
That's because I got a divorce.
No. It feels like I got the divorce. Like when I walked in, it got on me. Like it's in me.
How's the single life been?
I'm on all the apps, swiping up and down, and left and right.
Do my feet stink?
No.
Laundry machine's been broken, so I ran out of socks.
So what are you doing? Picking up chicks in a bookstore, like an off-brand Hugh Grant?
Actually, it was Hugh Grant that got picked up by Julia Roberts. So, joke's on you. I don't know who I really am anymore. Who am I similar to?
Van Jones?
LeVar Burton.
Black George R.R. Martin.
Obama.
Classic Obama.
You know you gotta work at this, right? Like make the happiness happen.
What about you?
My situation is different.
How so?
Because it's my business.
The banter, pretending to be someone you're not. I gotta be honest, I'm tired.
It's like every day's an adventure.
Are you seeing anybody now?
That's the whole story.
With you, it always is.
All of this is really new to me.
Damn.
I just don't want to suck at this. It would be nice to have a mom and dad have.
You know, this weed is for chilling purposes, not for your poetic ruminations.
No, you're right. I'm lost, and I gotta break the cycle.
Hang in there. It is all worth it.
The big question is, what do you want?
I'm just looking for something real.
Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today we're talking to the cast and creators behind the terrific HBO Max series, Love Life. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the AAFCA members who are on the call today, starting with our facilitator, Katia Woods in Philadelphia, although she's in LA today, Rhonda Rasha Penrice in Atlanta, Brandon Collins in Queens, New York, Carolyn Hines in Toronto, Joe Monroe in Los Angeles, Matthew Haynes, Nancy Green in Baltimore, and Ty in. I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I'll see you inside.
Hi, everyone. Brandon Collins from Media and Popcorn Podcast. My question is for Jessica. Mia has a pretty complex journey throughout the season.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, what was the most challenging part of her story arc for you to work through as an actress?
The most challenging part of Mia's story arc was to break up with Marcus. That was really hard because that was a moment where, you know, sometimes we sabotage ourselves even though we want something. And that scene was pretty difficult to watch her break her own heart and to try and stay, you know, impartial and not judge her, because as an actor, it's not my job to judge her. It's just to kind of channel her and bring her on the screen. And so that was actually really, really heartbreaking, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nailed it.
Jill Monroe, YouTube, Stiletto Jill. My question is for William. To see Marcus go through a variety of relationships, and we obviously observe how it's sort of easier for men to slip in and out of these situations than it is for women. Is there anything that you felt that you learned about relationships and love through portraying this character of Marcus?
No, I didn't learn nothing. Yeah, you know, I think that Marcus's central flaw that sort of, sort of like spiderwebs out into other things in his life and causes a lot of dysfunction is he's a guy who's hiding from himself all the time, and he's sort of in his judging of what his wants and needs or desires are, he's not being honest with himself, and he's not being honest with his partners. And there's something about just embracing everything that you are, like the good and the bad, and putting it out there that will attract what you need and push away the things that you don't. And, you know, you also, I think that there's in that hiding, it's like trying to hide some of the stuff that's not good, right? It's like trying to run away from those traits that you really dislike about yourself. And if you, but they'll rear their head at some point, and if you do that with another person, there, just to be collateral damage for your growth. It's like that. I think that's one of the things that Marcus winds up doing, is it's like there is a sort of, he's not being honest about what he wants and who he is, because he doesn't want to be that thing that he is in certain ways, but then it comes up somehow, and like, and it hurts. It hurts. It hurts the people that he's with, and so that's the thing that I took away from it. It's just like, you kind of got to be honest, the good and the bad, put it out there. And that way, it's like, to be, I don't know, to be like super like mechanical about it. It's like the disclaimers are already there. And if someone decides to go forward with you, that's kind of on them too. But if you kind of catfish them into something, thinking that you have them thinking that you're something else, and then you flip it on them, that's kind of selfish.
Love catfish culture.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you.
Nice.
Nice.
Hi, Carolyn Forrester. Here's what happened on Carolyn Talks podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to speaking with us today. So my question is for everyone on the panel. For William and Jessica, can you just tell me about working through the development of Marcus and Mia's relationship, from friends to lovers and to a husband and wife and parents, and how difficult that was, that process, because their relationship is very static, and then at moments it's just like speeding ahead. And for Sam and Rochelle, can you tell me that your perspective as writers and showrunners of developing this story so that it flows linearly, because it skips a lot of years, and like the ending was actually surprising to me because I wasn't expecting that. Like I wasn't expecting an epilogue. It was like, wait, what? So can you just tell me, you guys, about portraying those characters and the time and writing and developing the story as it went along?
I think when it came to developing the characters, I think we sort of like developed them. I feel like we developed them together in a lot of ways. I feel like there's like an energy that we both sort of like latched onto, and a rapport that we just kind of had, and just we kind of clicked immediately. And so like a lot of the growth was something that was just kind of happening organically as we were working together. And so when, there were big new story points, it didn't feel, it didn't feel like we were jumping way ahead. It just sort of felt like this is the next piece in the logical progression of two people who connect in the way that Marcus and Mia do. And so it's like, I feel like it's almost like, rather than looking at it as two characters sort of figuring out who they are separately and then how they interact, it's like, what is the sort of thread between the two of them that kind of keeps them moving in a certain direction? And that's what it felt like to me, like working on it. It just sort of, I felt like a lot of what I gleaned who Marcus was sort of coming through Mia's eyes a little bit, and how she felt about him. And it was like, that was informative. And yeah.
And we shot it in order, so it did feel like it progressed pretty naturally. And I think Will and I both knew how the season would end, and we just sort of knew the general beats, but just kind of then how we got there, we would like the minutia of it. All we had to do was kind of plug into that, or all I had to do. Don't know why I keep saying we. All I had to do was plug into that and kind of be present in the scene, but in the back of my mind, I knew how these two would end up. So I felt like we were kind of building this relationship together, and very much like Bridget and Sam and Rochelle were so a part of that too.
Yeah, just to jump in with the writing side of it. I mean, the room started and William was cast, and we knew he was our lead. And I think you always kind of keep the actor and performer in mind as you're crafting a character. Like character, you have thoughts about it, but I'm also thinking about Will and what I want to see him do, honestly. And we started crafting Marcus in the room. But with Mia, and Sam, jump in if I'm crazy, but I feel like there's a lot of Mia we discussed before Jessica was cast, and there was a way we saw Mia before she was cast. And then when she came on board, we definitely made some changes to Mia that all for the better, you know, and it just instantly kind of clicked in. And so originally we didn't have that ending in mind. We didn't have the ending yet. But once, and the cool thing about it is like we shot episode 1 before we were finished with all writing like the last like 3 or 4 episodes. So it really helped a lot, like, because we saw them on screen, like, you know, we see the scenes being shot in like the rough assembly of episode 1. It's like, oh my God, okay, well, duh. But it's like, how do we fake the audience out long enough so like they can get through these ups and downs, because ultimately these two really belong together. And then it became about making sure that those last 4 really handled the journey properly. But in terms of the character, like casting plays a big part of it, but also the room and, you know, who the writers are and what details of our life we're willing to give up to form these people. And so you kind of see you get a unique blend of that in these characters, particularly Mia, who was definitely always kind of a work in progress in the room.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like Rochelle was saying, part of the benefit, you know, I think it's on the one hand what makes making a TV show really crazy and really stressful, but on the other hand, it's something that we had fun trying to take advantage of, which is if you're still kind of writing and shaping the thing as it's being shot and you're kind of a few episodes, you know, ahead writing wise, but you're still figuring that out altogether, it gave us in this case the opportunity to like write to what was really happening and to see, right. you know, we were such huge fans of both Will and Jess, you know, before we ever got to work with them. But when you start to see them play these characters and you see them lock in so hard and lock into each other so hard, and you get to see that chemistry, it does make it so that you just want to write to it and you want to continue in that direction. And, you know, as everyone is saying, all work together to kind of figure that out. You know, and I think, you know, as far as the ending being known or not, I think, you know, we talked a lot just vaguely about, we want Marcus and Mia to end up together. We, you know, want this happy ending for these characters. And, you know, as Rochelle was saying, we have to kind of put them through the ringer to, you know, get a season of TV out of it before then. But I think, especially coming out of season 1, we were also pretty conscious of wanting to zig where season 1 zagged as much as possible, and to kind of twist it or subvert it or just turn the structure around whenever we could. And so part of that was, you know, season 1 followed, you know, a young woman, she's in her 20s. And so much of that was kind of, you know, the story of one individual trying to find someone and not knowing who that person was. And I think one of the things we were interested in from a pretty early point with season 2 was, how can we build these two characters? They're both adults. And instead of it being the story of one person wondering if anyone will ever love them, it's really more about these two people and the amount of time that it takes for them to be ready for each other. And what do they go through along that road? What do they learn about each other? How do those things kind of fold in on themselves and back again? You know, it's funny, like even when, you know, we've been dropping these episodes in batches, and I think there were a lot of people, I saw people on Twitter who, after the first 6 were out, thought the season was over. And, you know, because 6 ends with kind of this, like, it's a little opaque, or it's like a little open-ended, but it ostensibly, I guess, could be, you know, Marcus and Mia ending up together. And I think those people had no idea that it was going to sort of like blow up and come back together, and, you know, all the kind of craziness that was yet to come. So I think, you know, yeah, anyway, I'll stop rambling, but I think, you know, a lot of it is, how do we kind of build Marcus, follow Marcus down this rabbit hole, invest in these relationships that he's with along the way, that, you know, these relationships he's in along the way that aren't with Mia, but also kind of keep Mia alive and really have the audience be rooting for that as the kind of core story, and not, you know, rolling their eyes or turning the TV off anytime it's not Mia, you know, sort of trying to thread all of that together into something, and hopefully that's what we did.
You did. You succeeded. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Nancy Green with Film Critique. And my question is for everyone. When I was watching the show, one of the things that struck me was I kind of felt that the portrayal of toxic love dynamics is something that's really popular. And I noticed that in the show, like it's portrayed as something that's almost desirable. And I was wondering, like, how do you tackle that and how do you explore that and play into that sort of idea?
Let's go first.
Woo! Yeah, that's a good question. Toxic love dynamics. Well, I just feel
You got this. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yes, that is a good question. Wasn't expecting that. But I do feel like as the actor in it, it wasn't, I think there's a lot of Mias. I think that there's a lot of people who tend to self-sabotage in different ways in love. I feel like, especially how I just approached Mia, I just felt like, she does some toxic, what you could consider toxic things, or you could see it as, she's responding to the way she was conditioned in her environment and responding to vulnerability with fear, which then leads her to push Marcus away. I think toxic is a really that is one way to phrase it, but I think that's why episode 7 is really interesting and strong, is because you actually kind of learn about what her model of a father was. And I think, and I hope that even though she does something that's pretty, unforgivable, and for many people, I hope that people saw themselves in her, and that people that have done and made similar mistakes could feel not like they're a horrible person, but like there's someone making mistakes based on behavioral patterns, and that doesn't make them a bad person, and that they can still be worthy of love. And I also think that it's great because in episode 9, Mia and Marcus do reconnect, and she does say, I've done a lot of work on myself. I did go to therapy, which is also a really beautiful and powerful thing for her to learn and understand why she was making such negative choices that hurt herself and her partner and this guy that she really loves. And I really like that we, and especially in Mia, we can see these people that, someone that we all know and would think of negatively, and kind of get her perspective and not necessarily judge her as harshly as being a bad person or just like a toxic person, quote unquote.
For sure. And I think, there's also a lot that we thought about in terms of, I think the show is like on the surface a romantic comedy, but we always were trying to kind of push it in a direction that hopefully feels more real. And, I think I love a lot of romantic comedies, but I think it especially got to a point where everything was so kind of external or high concept or kind of fake, so that every romantic comedy is like, okay, one of them's a ghost, or it's all a bet, or one of them's writing an article about the other one, something like that. And it's just never, what I think most people really go through. And so in trying to, have these stories be rooted in conflicts and in, situations that do feel more real, you're kind of left with internal things. You're left with self-sabotage, and you're left with like, okay, when relationships don't work, for the most part, why is that? Or how is this person fucking it up for themselves? Or why do they not think that they deserve this love? And why are they not willing to accept it yet? How can they get there? And, I think that's a lot of what we were kind of trying to explore, and I think that with the show in general, the hope is that as much, as we're able to hopefully do more and more of it, everything that we explore kind of twists and muddles and complicates it, so that we're not saying any one thing about any of it. It's never us saying, here's what it's like to be in a relationship or anything like that. It's instead being able to go, okay, in season 1, this guy Magnus, toxic, word that applies for sure, maybe not redeemable. This guy, might have moved on to like the next town, so to speak, and might never stop acting like that. But on the other hand, you know, you look at season 2 and you see some of the stuff that Marcus goes through with Mia and that Mia goes through with Marcus. And, you know, I would say a lot, I think they both make a lot of mistakes. That was something that was really important to us, to try to make it interesting, to try to make it, again, you know, feel real. And, you know, I think especially hopefully the way that we kind of stick the landing at the end of it, so much of it is it's like seeing Mia work through that and get through that. And that, like, you know, Marcus can be the guy that, you know, gets signed into the dorm and blows up his marriage, and, you know, that they both have this kind of, you know, I don't know, I guess we didn't talk about this that much, Rochelle. I'm curious what you think, but, like, you know, they both have left this kind of like trail of wreckage in their wake almost, you know, but that they both still deserve it, and they're not bad people. They're just people, they're just trying to figure it out, and they don't know.
Yeah, I think if you're an adult and you're raised on planet Earth, you're toxic. I think everyone is toxic. like now we use the term like flawed to kind of like as a euphemism for toxic, but like we grew up, we have parents, we have backstories, we have the first time someone kicked you in the face with a kickball, like, you know, that made you, that put some piece of your personality, like, you know, every little thing that happens to a person as they grow up shapes them, some negative, some positive. But yeah, so like everyone's kind of toxic. But the thing is though, what makes you like, I guess, nuclear is if you are not willing to receive or hear any criticism or see a pattern and like try to make a change. And it takes forever to change. Like it took Marcus and Mia both. I mean, if you look at the timeline, 7-8 years to fully like kind of lock in. And even still, you know, Marcus and Mia still have some stuff to work on in 10. I think that was the importance of the epilogue of like, it doesn't stop here. When you love someone and it's like, okay, I know this is my person, you have to keep going. And that's why I love that we had Darby and 10 to kind of like, no, me and Graham like aren't perfect. It looked like it was perfect in the end of season 1, but it takes work. And that's what helps someone become healthier. But we'll never stop being fully toxic. We'll never, there's certain things that's like, okay, let me try to do this to get my way. Oh yeah, that's not the right way to go about it. I'm recognizing when I'm doing something kind of wrong, but it takes recognition, I think. So yeah, we're all bad people trying to make good.
Bill?
Yeah.
Bill.
I thought I could.
Yeah, you did. You tried it. You tried it. You were like this.
It was like, yeah, I feel like it all sort of goes back to being honest with yourself about the things that you need to improve on. And, and sometimes it's not even necessarily that you need to improve, certain things. It's like you just got to be honest with the people that you're with about what the deal is. So, I feel like there's nothing wrong with wanting to be just like to have multiple lovers at all times. If that is your lifestyle and that's what you're into, go for it, as long as everybody's into it. But if you are judging it and you're hiding it from all those multiple lovers, that's the problem, and if they're not aware of it. And so it's like, at what point are you just looking out for you and your gratification? And at what point are you actively pursuing the things that make you happy, but in an ethical way? And I think that's one of the things that, I think that Marcus is sort of dealing with at the top, is that, especially in the first half of the season, he judges some of the impulses that he has, and he doesn't want to be the guy that he kind of is at that time. And and so he behaves in ways that, he presents as this idea that he wants to be, but he's not that person yet. He's got some work to do. And so yeah, I mean, like I agree with Rochelle. Like, everybody's a little bit toxic, but I think that it's like when that toxicity is when you bring other people into that sphere and you're not honest with them, and then they're somehow, they're damaged because of that lack of honesty, that's when it becomes a real problem. I mean, not in all things. I mean, there's some things that are just jacked up behaviors that you shouldn't engage in, but there's like other things that, are just sort of, it's just about being true and honest about who you are with the person that you're with.
And one last thing that I was just thinking too on this, like, I also feel like we as audiences are so conditioned to compare when we're thinking about characters and their kind of likability or their decision making, we're like comparing them to other fictional characters. And so it's like, if you're comparing Marcus to like Forrest Gump, like maybe he's a bad guy, I guess. But I think if you compare him to like your best friend who's an asshole, but like you love him anyway and defend him anytime anyone says he's an asshole, but like he's your best friend, I think that's maybe more what we were after, was trying to kind of get at that and, make people think about themselves and the mistakes they've made, and, for better and for worse, how they've changed and how they've grown and hopefully gotten better. And, just that it's sort of like, what's like the worst you ever hurt anybody, and how can we kind of create characters that feel like people we know instead.
But that's what you want to play as an actor too. Like I want to play complicated people that have depth and make choices that I don't necessarily agree with, because that's the joy of acting. I don't want to play perfect people. I don't want to watch anything about perfect people being perfect that have no conflict. That is so
How could they date?
like what do you, I want to see people make like bad choices and good choices and learn from them or not. That's like, to me, what's compelling about story. And that's what's compelling about like my favorite characters, like Walter White or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was great. And yeah, those were really good points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, it's Ty Chloe here with Your Voice Media, and my question is for Jessica and William. So this season, Keith David, he narrated the second season, and he did a phenomenal job. Now, if you two had the option, who would you like to narrate your life if your life was turned into a television show?
Keith David.
Okay, sticking with Keith. Cool.
He's so good. His voice is velvet.
It is pretty infectious, I would say, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, William.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Keith. There is no other right answer.
Right. You know what?
Yeah.
Why would I ask that question? Because I set myself up, and clearly the answer was there the whole time.
Keith David.
Keith David. Okay, maybe you can narrate my life too. So we'll keep that.
See.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Matthew from Matthew Gaines over on YouTube. So I have a question for William. So this season wasn't only great at just showing what love was like through the eyes of a Black man and going through those struggles with identity, but it also showed how important it was to have good friends in your life who will hold you accountable. And that's one of the things that stuck out to me was the relationship between Marcus and Yogi. So can you describe what it was like working with Christopher Powell?
I had to hold on to my hat because, the thing is, CP does some live punch-ups. Like you are in the scene and you really don't know what's coming, and you just want to make sure that it makes it into the edit. So you're just holding on for dear life because it's funny. But the thing about CP is, as funny as he is in a lot of ways. He shares a lot of traits with Yogi, as far as, from my point of view. He is like a very funny, down to earth dude, but he's got a very stable home life. He is a grounded, like just decent dude who's got this incredible wit and sense of humor. And I think that it's also, I feel like the trope is like the best friend is always sort of pushing the romantic lead into some trouble, or, not necessarily not necessarily trying to like drag them down, but like sort of egging them towards terrible decisions. I think it's like a really great thing to turn that on its head and have someone be so funny and so biting, but tell really hard truths. And that's something that CP he just embodies that. He just understands that. He's like he is just a deeply good dude. So and he is very grounded. In a lot of ways, he's a lot more grounded than I am as a person. And so it's it's great. And I just love seeing. I mean, I honestly just love seeing. I just love seeing a brother playing that role on camera. I really like it. It feels right. It feels true. I feel like I have friends like that in my life, and I haven't seen a lot of it. It's not like it doesn't exist, but it's not common. And so to get to see that and to see a relationship that feels really familiar to me, and to get to be a part of putting that out in the world in some capacity was really, really satisfying. And yeah, but working with CP, just try not to laugh, because you want the jokes to make it in your head, and you don't want to break. You don't want to trash all this really good material that he was throwing out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Good morning, guys. Katya Woods, Cup of Soul Show. My question is for Belle. I feel like there are traits where we start to see that Marcus has constructed this life, this ideal, this fantasy, and at the beginning, and it takes him a while to accept that, about himself. Like when he's trying to sign the Black author, and he says, you're like Obama, and the same thing with like his marriage. It's very like mechanical. It's like a routine. And when Mia kind of like hits him on his dating choices, he's like, no, I'm not that guy. But she's like, yes, he is. So talk a little bit about what that was like, just having him, because we all have an idea of who we think we are. And someone comes along and says, that ain't you, bro.
Well, the thing is, I mean, there's two sides to that. There is, like, I don't think that someone coming along and telling you who you are, I don't think they're 100% right either. It's like, it kind of goes both ways. It's like there's an idea that Marcus has of himself and a way he thinks he presents. And then there's how he actually presents. And then there's the way that he presents that people see and they think that that's him, but he's actually somewhere over here. And so it's complicated. It's tough, and like that hit is really, it stings, because you don't want to be the person that looks like you make certain kinds of choices, and that people can just see that right off the bat. You want to think that people are like able to see, like, either that there's some mystery about you, they can't make snap judgments about you, but or that they see something that you are actively putting out there. And like, I think that in Marcus's case, he's the thing. I think that when Mia hits him with that, he's like, I was worried that was the dude that I was presenting as, and that's not the person that I wanted to present as, because it's not actually him. And so it's it does sort of cause this real crisis of identity. You're just sort of like, man, like I thought that, I don't want to be this person to people in my community. Like I don't want that. But I also don't want to just do things because everyone in my community says that I'm supposed to do X, Y, Z. I need to live my own life. And so it is sort of like, it sort of knocks you into this weird liminal space. And I think Marcus gets knocked into a weird liminal space of wanting to sort of further investigate who he actually is. I think there's a part of him that's always been kind of running from it and sort of trying to craft an identity in a world around him that represents what he thinks he's supposed to be. And when someone sees through that even if they're not necessarily seeing, the exact thing that he actually is, but if they're seeing that the facade is not actually sturdy, that, when you're in your 30s, you feel like that should be pretty secure, like that should be like there. And so, yeah, I feel like a lot of that was, it was a pretty big catalyst for the entire journey that Marcus goes on. And I think beyond that, just being intensely attracted to Mia right off the bat and just feeling chemistry immediately, and not being able to do anything about that because he's married and he doesn't want to be the dude who cheats. Like that is a contract. That is a commitment. And so it's but there's just so many things that just kind of bubble up to the surface for him, and just causes him to question everything that he thinks about himself and who he is moving through the world.
Hi, Rhonda here. Sam, I'm curious as to why you created Love Life in the first place, and to you and Jessica, Rachel, and William, how did the responsibility for the show change because it was a Black-centered cast and story?
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, the idea was just this structure, this kind of way of shaping a season of TV where each season would follow a new character and each episode within that season would kind of be broken up as, one of their relationships and this kind of piece of time in their life that we jump through time. And, and to be totally honest, at the very beginning, I never thought it was going to be a show because I'm not crazy. So I just wrote it as like a writing sample, honestly, thinking that maybe I'd be, lucky enough to get staffed on a show or something, truly. And so I was like, yeah, and every year it'll reset, did I think it was gonna be more than one season? No fucking way. And, and that's been like an incredible part of actually getting the show on its feet when, I was lucky enough to kind of have the first season come together, and the fact that we got to make another season put us in like a very kind of unique position, right? Where it's not often that you go, okay, we have like a greenlit season of television. All it really has to be is like a character study. And we can build it around an actor who's really exciting to us. And I think kind of the way that earlier we were talking about chemistry and writing to the chemistry, that's always the way that I try to approach stuff. So for me, it was, again, just being an enormous fan of Will's and being really excited about the idea of taking that structure that we had used in season one, applying it to a new character that, Will could play and that could be, not just crafted around him, but in collaboration with him, because again, we were getting to kind of build it all together, having this blank slate. And so from there, it just became about, building out the collaboration and, having Will involved as an executive producer, as, in addition to being the star from the very beginning, and then, working with Rochelle and working with an incredible writer's room to, sort of just, for me, it was really about trying to get out of the way and let the story be as authentic as possible, and hope that it would work.
Yeah, Rhonda, to answer your question, yes, we knew there was a huge responsibility with taking on, honestly, and I think, but that was one of the things that made the collaboration, I think, work so well between Sam, Bridget, and myself, is that it was one of those things of like, it could have easily been a second season where you have Will and he's a guy, and and he's just there are versions where you don't really bring it up, or you're kind of in this fantasy. There are all kinds of shows that do different things to get around deeper issues, or to it's a rom-com. That's usually kind of the blanket answer for like why there isn't enough diversity in rom-coms. Or it's just like, it's got to be happy, so like if you got too much this going on, like, is it still a rom-com? It's like absolutely, but if we ground it in reality and all the writers, like a great staff, all and diverse staff, Black writers, writers of color, coming in with their experiences, dating white people, dating people like them, dating other people, and kind of like the difficulties of what that was. It's like, I just kind of do have to date a little differently, or I have been in a situation where it's like, you know, I'm not feeling it, even though this person looks like me or is exactly like me. And we want it, like, that's how it feels real, because these are actual dating experiences from our staff, you know. And but yeah, I'm the one. Sam knows I was the Twitter police, I was the insecure police. And like, listen, you know, there's things I think we can really accomplish, but we can't ignore some of what people want. Like, we do want it to be aspirational, but without being preachy, without being a lesson, you know. So we want it to be enjoyed. We want people to be able to take something away from it. But we also just understand what women and men who look like us want to see a little bit of. It's just like, let's, like, so they're going to be ups and downs, but like, wow, like, we got to see this couple get through it. And, and if they could take something away from that of like, you know what, maybe talk to this person, or maybe just try to understand a little better versus, some of the, to me, like the drama of like, I just wanted to have a lot of joy in it. But I think that was the main responsibility, to present a show that had not only diversity in the cast, but diverse Black people. Like, I love that Yogi's the best one that says, stay home. I love Kian is the millionaire, and just like, so you have all these different types of people of color, because, we're not this monolith. And I think that really comes through. But that was something we're aware of from day one of the room, is like, let's do our best to make it authentic and real and use our real experiences.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was so excited to do the show, is because a lot of times when I turn on the TV, I really just want to see Black people doing stuff. Like, I want to see people of color just doing shit. And a lot of times it's just like not that, or it's something that feels like kind of traumatizing, or, I just wanted to turn on my TV and see like Black people in a rom-com. And so I was really excited to be a part of it, just because I am a woman of color. And I think that just focusing on, my job is to focus on Mia and make sure she's protected, and make sure that I'm like feeling authentic to her. And it just adds so much depth, like just being a person of color in this rom-com, it just adds another layer. And so it's cool because some of the jokes play to both just like Black people, and then the truth is universal, so it plays to people of other races as well. Like, there's this really funny Punky Johnson line where she's like, I just can't be using like strange lotions, babe. Like, that to me is something that like really, I think, hits like really deeply to like Black people, and then people that like don't necessarily know what that means. And so and you know what it is, now that I think about that, it's like there's something really deeply gratifying. Like, a lot of us just laugh just now because there's something that just reaches down as a person of color, like about a line like that just really warms like my heart. And so I was really excited to just really have the space in the room to breathe life into Mia as a person of color, and to acknowledge that in the script, and just as a part of this whole season.
I think it's also one of those things where it's amazing how many things I just think that everybody knows, but really just Black people know. And then I'm like always surprised, but I'm like, oh, like y'all didn't, oh, okay. And so it's like, just getting to have those things work their way into the show, and then like seeing the responses of people being like, oh, that's so specific. That, yeah, no, I get that. I never get to see that. And it's like, oh yeah, I guess we don't see that. It's like, like I joke with my family and my friends like that, and with, with some of these touchstones, but, it's like, it's, but I just sort of take it for granted in certain ways. And then like, so for people to appreciate that, and for the intention to have been received is really, it's really gratifying, you know, and for the specificity to have rung true and to connect with so many folks, that's, you know, that's amazing. And it just sort of opened my eyes in so many ways where I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess that is a specifically Black thing. I just never thought of it that way, you know? And that's, yeah.
Okay. Well, I have to ask, can we get some more Mia and Marcus?
Honestly, I've been
Bring this
pushing for
baby
this
in.
for many months. Many months. I've been like, I know this was an anthology show, but let's just have it stop being an anthology. But my suspicion is that Will and Jessica are about to be so busy that they're not going to want to do like 100 episodes of a sitcom about them being married, but maybe they do. I don't know. So,
Oh my God.
you know, honestly, recently I've been thinking just like Christmas special, you know, anything, anything.
like Britain, like England.
Exactly,
like, you know,
exactly,
just
anything.
One more hour.
Yeah,
Anything.
absolutely. Oh yeah, I'm in. I mean, I'm in.
Yeah, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate your effort, your work. It's a terrific show. Love Life can be seen on HBO Max now. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film critics, thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.
Thank you
so much for
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This is
you.
great.
Great
Thank you.
job.